Hey there, TNT Group. I am doing a coaching session with a member of the management team, with the general manager, and with a salesperson using my one-on-one coaching method that you're supposed to do once a month with your sales team as a team leader or as a manager. And so I wanted to kind of go over this exercise. I'm hosting this here because I cannot go over this exercise with all of the management team at the store, so I'm hoping they can review this. So if you're watching this as a manager, specifically, who would be watching this? David and Mike. David and Mike, I'm doing this with you in mind, but any manager or dealer who's watching this is the coaching exercise that I want you to do with your salespeople once a month. And I'm going to walk through the basics of it. I won't actually go through the full exercise because we get into some personal information. I'm not going to broadcast that live, but you'll get the gist of it. And then if you'd like, I can upload the document into the file section for you to print off and use at your store with your people. So very quickly, let me flip the screen around and tell you what we're looking at and what we're doing. All right, hold on. Okay. All right, so Susan, smile, say hi.
Hello.
Are you excited to be on live?
Oh, I'm very excited.
Joe, smile and say hi. Hello. There's the smile I was looking for. All right, so I've got Joe here, I've got Susan here, and I've got this assessment now. What I want you to know, and what I'm going to explain to everybody, but I want you to see the sheet, those of you who are watching the video, is this is the assessment. Now, it has two parts to it. So you can see it says assessment from my team. And then the second part of it is this part here, and it says assessing my team. So the two perspectives that this is designed to work with is this perspective here is the management. So in this case, Susan is going to be assessing her team. So in this case, we're assessing Joe, and these are the things she'll be assessing. And we'll be talking about this a little bit here. The 5 levels of leadership, the 4 skills of a sales professional, the hierarchy of needs, the 6 core needs, and then the 5 languages of appreciation. So these are definitions and terms I'm going to go over and explain. That's part of the reason this video is being created. And then on the actual assessment, that's where these definitions and terms will come in handy. So in the case of Susan, she'll be assessing Joe, and what will be happening here is she'll be answering these questions regarding Joe. And so she'll be scoring Joe in these areas down here at the bottom, and she'll also be going over this information here with regards to Joe. So as I explain this, let me try to get into the meat and potatoes, but let me show you some of the differences again, okay? So that's the assessing my team, this is the assessment from my team. So Joe has the same sort of assessment, but a little bit different perspective. So as you can see here, the very first question, it says, current level of relationship with my manager. Susan has one that says, current level of leadership with this person. So what's happening is they're both answering the same question, but from different perspectives. So that's what this assessment's designed to do. For the rest of this video, I'm going to go through the first page, which is the definitions. I'm going to explain and define those so that you understand how to complete the rest of the sheet. Because once you understand the definitions, everything becomes pretty self-explanatory. All right, so let's get into the definitions first. Okay, so basically what's happening here is you've got terms and definitions. The first category is called the 5 levels of leadership. And this is actually taken from John Maxwell's book. He wrote the book called The 5 Levels of Leadership. He's a best-selling author, coach, speaker on leadership, travels the world talking to Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies on how to develop winning teams. And in his book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, these are the actual levels that he talks about. So you can see here, the first level is position, then permission, then production, then people development, and then pinnacle. So let's take a look at those real quick. So when assessing each other in this one-on-one, which you'll do like once a month together, what you're asking is simply this question here, Joe. When you think of your relationship to Susan as one of your leaders, what is the reason why you believe you follow Susan? Susan is asking the question from her perspective in relation to you. When she thinks about you following her, what is the reason she believes you follow her? So you each have your own perspective. Your reasons why you think you follow her, her reasons why she thinks you follow her. And in each of these cases, we're going to look at the 5 levels, okay? So level number 1, it says, is the position level. They have a title, and that's why I follow them. So a level 1 leader to you, Joe, would be somebody that you say, the main reason I do what Susan says is because she's my boss, and I'm supposed to do what the boss says, and so I follow her because she has that title, she has that position, and that's the right thing to do, is to just honor that position. So I do what she says because she's my boss. If you believe that's the relationship that you have, then that's what you would give her, a level 1 level. Now, level 2 says Permission. They have a relationship with me, and that's why I choose to follow them. So in this case, you're going beyond, she has a title. You're saying, I trust Susan. I have a relationship with Susan. I listen to her not just because she's my boss, but I choose to follow her. That's the second level. The third level, as you can see then, says production. They have increased my production, and that's why I follow them. So it goes beyond, I like Susan and I trust Susan. It goes to, when I do what Susan says, I produce better. So I follow Susan because she impacts my production. That'd be the third level. Then as you can see, the fourth level, it says personal or people development. It says they have made me a better person or employee, and that's why I follow them. So you would say, it goes beyond production with me and Susan. I'm a better human being because of Susan. She's impacted me personally. And then, of course, the final level is the pinnacle leader. And it says they have developed me to be a leader, and that's why I follow them. Now, the whole purpose of this exercise, when done correctly, is that you answer honestly, she answers honestly, and there's going to be some disconnect. Almost every time I've done this exercise, in fact, every time I've ever done this with managers, there is a point of disconnect or two or three somewhere on the sheet as we go through everything. So it works best if you don't try to answer what you think they should want you to say, but you answer what you actually believe.
I understand.
Because the only way we have the breakthrough that we want is if we're both all transparent with each other and just answering honestly, right? And no hard feelings, okay? Now, next one is it says then the 4 skill sets of a professional. Salesmanship, communication, mindset, and marketing. As you can see, the next one, it says ability to address questions and concerns, handle objections, and close the sale. So salesmanship, communication, ability to adapt to the personality, culture, or style of any customer. Next one, ability to stay focused, organized, motivated, and maintain goals with a good attitude. And then finally, marketing, ability to separate yourself in the market, promote, and generate your own leads and referrals. So basically in this particular next section, what it's asking is this. Joe's going to be asked the question in the sheet. He's going to ask, which do I think is my strength and which is my second strength? Susan, you're going to be answering for Joe. What do you think is his strength and his second strength? So you're going to look at those definitions and go, what's his number 1 and number 2 skill set? And you're both answering that about Joe. Okay? Then you get to the next one, 5 hierarchy of needs. Hey there, Sean. Sean Weatherby says, I love to follow Miss Susan. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. All right, so 5 hierarchy of needs. Here it says physiological, psychological, relational, personal, and peak experiential. So as you look at that, let's look at what this means. The 5 hierarchy of needs is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is from the 1930s and 40s. He was the famous dude who built the pyramid and said, until you have these base level needs, you can't really move to the next level of focus. So what you're trying to answer here, Susan, is this question. What is it that preoccupies Joe's thoughts? When he's kind of just musing to himself about his life, when he's just thinking about himself, thinking about his situation, what is he most worried about? What is he most aware of? What does he most need right now? And so if you look at the first one called physiological, it says food, shelter, paying bills, and transportation. A level 1 person is somebody who's stuck right now, preoccupied by survival, right? So that would be where they'd be at. They'd be at number 1. Number 2 is psychological, which is a little bit above that. So as you can see on the psychological need, it actually says protection, security, stability, savings, peace of mind. So what a level 2 person is doing is, I'm no longer afraid that I won't eat. I'm just afraid that I'll go back there. So for level 2, psychological needs is, I want to protect myself from falling back to where I was just at. Because just a couple of months ago or just a year ago, my life was in such mess. I just don't want to go back there. So they're constantly preoccupied with protecting themselves, not falling backwards. That's the step 2 or stage 2. The next one is relational. As you can see here, relational needs, it says affection, love, belongingness, and happiness at home. Once again, a person won't feel like a really good, valuable team member if they don't feel like they have their bases covered. Like if I'm constantly worried that I'll slip back in time, I'm not so much concerned with how everybody else is doing. I'm not so much concerned with my relationship with you right now because I'm more concerned with just making sure I don't fall apart. So that would be a 3rd tier need. You go to the 4th tier, which is then personal, as you can see. Personal need is self-esteem, freedom, prestige, and confidence. Joe might not be so concerned with becoming the best salesperson he can be if he doesn't even feel like he has people who even like him, or doesn't even feel like he has his bases covered. If he doesn't even feel like he has enough safety net, then he's not worried about being the best salesman because he doesn't even have enough of the bases covered. So at each of these needs, you think of them kind of as stacking on top of each other. That it's hard to talk to somebody about peak experiential fulfillment and becoming the best version of themselves if they're somewhere down here worried about even, paying bills. So the idea is Joe's going to answer what level does he feel like he's at. You're going to answer what level you think he's at, right? Okay, 2 more categories here. As you see here, it says next one is core needs. Now this comes from Tony Robbins' work on the 6 human needs. You see certainty, variety, community, significance, contribution, and growth. So in this case, what you're going to do is answer the question this way. In order for Joe to really thrive, in order for him to feel environmentally like he can produce, what does Joe need to feel so that he can feel at his best or normal? So in the first one, you see it says certainty. If Joe is a person who needs certainty, what that means is that in order for Joe to thrive and be successful, he needs to feel structure, consistency, organization, and clear expectations. Which means if that's his need and you don't give him that, he can't function. If Joe needs structure and you don't give him structure, he's a mess. He needs to know, what do you want me to do exactly? Tell me, why are you telling me to do this? If things need to be a certain way. If they're not given to him a certain way, he can't even function properly. He needs that organization. Or, you see the next one, variety. Here you have a need, variety. They need change, creativity, freedom, and they like uncertainty. If Joe is wired where he needs to feel that freedom, flexibility, he needs to have the autonomy, but you keep giving him structure, it suppresses him because he's like, I can't handle the weight. You don't put me in this box. I need to feel like give me some, let me flap my wings a little bit. So if you need variety, that means you need that in order to survive. If you don't feel like you're getting it, you don't function properly. And as you can see through the list, the same thing happens with all the other 4. So the next one is community. They need to feel like they're part of a team or something bigger or a group. Significance, they need to feel special, separate. They like attention and they want to receive praise. Contribution, they want to be able to give, share, teach, and coach others. And growth, they want to be able to improve, grow, and see opportunity for advancement. So the point of this question is, in order for Joe to feel like he's really in a healthy environment and he can actually function at his best, which of these 2 things does he need to be in place for him to be fully Joe? That if you take these things away from him, he just doesn't function well at all, right? So if he has a hardwired need for contribution, he needs to be able to give. He keeps trying to give, but every time he gives, people shut him down. Joe, we don't need your help. Joe, that's okay. Joe, we got somebody else who's going to handle that. Joe, we got somebody else who'll take care of that for you. If he keeps trying to give, and every time he tries to give, he feels disrespected, undervalued, underappreciated, like he's not contributing, over time, he'll feel like, and he'll start to suppress himself because he just doesn't feel valued anymore. So you're looking for, from your perspective, Susan, as the coach, you're asking the question, what do I think he needs to be at his best? He's asking the question for himself. And then you get to the final 5 here, and it says, words of encouragement, constant praise, both public and private declarations of value. These are the 5 languages of appreciation. Quality time, spending time one-on-one, in and out of work situations, tangible gifts, token gestures, ranging from tickets to trophies to a can of Red Bull, acts of service, which is assisting with a project assignment or completion of task, and finally touch, which is acknowledgement through high fives, handshakes, and pats on the back. So the 5 languages of appreciation is the final step. What this has to do with is, if I want Joe to know how much I value him, what is the best way to demonstrate that for him, that he would receive it? For some salespeople, it is words of praise, which means I got to tell him, not high five physically, but hey, bro, great job. What you did was amazing. Joe, you're such a great guy. We really appreciate you. Telling him those words might fill his love bucket, so to speak, right? But if he's not wired that way, and I keep telling him that, but the whole time, let's say he's wired for quality time, he keeps asking for a few minutes of your time. He keeps saying, hey, is there any way you can sit down with me? I want to go over something with you. And you're always too busy to talk to him. But you could be telling him over and over again, great job, great job, great job. But he just is like, if you really thought I was doing a great job, why won't you sit down with me? So if he has acts of service and needs help with a project, and you keep, telling him great job, you may be trying to say I appreciate you, but he's not receiving it. He's speaking a different language. Okay? So what this assessment is designed to do, and what the next step in this process is designed to do, is to just ask a simple question about the relationship that you have with your management. So on the very first one, you're going to write in, obviously, Joe's name at the top, And then the top question that says level of experience. Susan, you're going to write in his total experience in the car business. You're going to write in your total experience in the car business. Time with company, total time with company. You're both going to write that in. Now, when doing this exercise, normally going forward, you would not do this in the same room. I'm just doing it the first time because I'm trying to walk through it. But you don't get to ask each other for help. So you're filling out the sheets the entire time without asking him any questions. He's filling it out independently, no cheating. Okay? Then the next thing is the current level of leadership, and you're both going to put a value of what you believe the level of leadership relationship you have with each other, and you're going to go down the list using the sheet that I've just walked through: dominant skill, secondary skill, primary hierarchy of need, what level of need is occupying his mind, top 2 core needs, what does he need to have in place in order for him to function properly, top 2 languages that he responds well to, and then you get down to for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's talk about those for a second. 7 is last year's average income on a monthly. What was Joe averaging a month last year? What was his annual for last year? Highest ever earned income, and this is ever in your life. Okay, so ever in your life, what's the most you've ever earned in a month? What's the most you've ever earned in a year? And then minimum income to make basic bills covered, and then income goal range for this year, minimum to most, like how much this year does he want to earn, a range, I want to earn between this and this much for the year, and then you have primary wish or goal for the year to achieve or acquire. What's the main goal that Joe has this year? And then we'll wrap up the video with the summary here. You can see on a scale of 1 to 10, you see this ranking here of the scale of 1 to 10, which is basically just going to be a series of questions on how well Joe participates in the store overall. Okay, so that's the essence of it. Now, a couple of bullet points, and then I'm going to shut off the thing. We're going to actually do the whole exercise together. Okay, so let me kind of put this back here. All right, am I in the frame? Mm-hmm. Okay, a couple of bullet points that I think are really important if you're a member of management watching this this exercise. The very first time that you do it, it's very important that you take the time to go through the cover sheet and kind of define the definitions and explain and kind of make sure you're both on the same page, because we want to make sure we have common language, so that we're both talking about the same thing as much as possible the first time through. So taking the time to explore everything, explain everything is very important the first time you do this with whoever you're coaching. The next thing that's really important is that you always do the assessment separate from each other, and that hopefully going forward you have a schedule. So what would happen is, if I'm doing this with Joe, Joe's my teammate, is I'm going to say, hey Joe, I'd like to schedule next Tuesday for our one-on-one session. Can you go ahead and get your assessment completed by 1 o'clock on Tuesday? Let's put it both on our calendars real quick. So now we both have a reminder for 1 o'clock. I have an appointment with Joe to go to a private room. By 1 o'clock, he's already got his page of his assessment, this one page here, completed. I've got it completed as well. We sit down. That one-on-one should take about a half an hour to talk through, unless there's something serious, heavy going on in Joe's life. Take about a half an hour to go through that exercise. Once it's both completed, we're just walking through the things together, okay? Other things you want to know is that there will be some degree of conflict, awkwardness, or uncomfortableness to some degree when things don't match. For example, I've had situations where the manager believed they were a level 4 relationship and leadership, and the salesperson answered they were a level 1. So the salesperson's thinking, I'm following you because you have a title, you're my boss. The manager's thinking, you're following me because I've changed your life. Well, there's a disconnect, obviously, at that point. Or a situation that happened in Florida recently for me was really interesting, where there was a salesperson who was in his late 50s. He had been a dealer before. He'd been in the car business for 30 years. He'd been a dealer, owned a franchise store before. He's now back at this used car store for a few months now. His sales manager doing the one-on-one is a 20-something-year-old sales manager who's sitting here filling out the sheets. The sales manager puts most money he's earned in his life in 1 year, $60,000. The guy, $1.2 million. So can you imagine the gap between this gentleman who's almost 60, who's been in the car business for 30 years? This guy he's been in the car business for 4 years. So the manager thought this guy's maybe got 4 years in the business total. The guy's been at the store for several months. He put him down for 4 years total experience, 30 years total experience. Most he's ever earned is probably 60 grand in a year. Guys, 1.2 million. So the manager in his mind is making 8 grand a month right now. The manager is. The salesperson right now is making 4 grand. So he sees this 50-year-old dude making 4 grand a month and thinks this guy's kind of probably always been kind of this middle of the road. And here I am, 20-something, I'm making 8 grand a month. So this guy wants to contribute because he's at a season of his life where that's what's most important to him. He wants to help out. He's not here to make a bunch of money. He just needs to get out of the house because his wife is dying. And so in his situation, his wife said, I need you to do what you love. Next to me, you love the car business. Go sell cars somewhere. You can't be with me all the time. It drives me nuts. So he came out of retirement to sell cars, to have something to do, to occupy himself while he's with his twilight years with his wife. The sales manager knows none of this. The guy's been working with him for months. So this all came out in the one-on-one. So this exercise can get personal. To some degree, it should get personal. And the hope is that as you do this over and over again, once a month with your team for a couple of months in a row, that you become a closer bond and you also understand each other. I understand what it takes to motivate Joe at a new level. Joe understands how you're wired a little bit better, and everybody can work better. So that's the goal of the exercise. The final thing you need to know is at the end of the assessment is this here, the action plan. The action plan then allows you to set a specific goal that you target and outline the scope of the goal, and then you have the accountability of both signing it, and you have something to work on going forward. That's your private goal with you and your manager. And now in our store, what we're going to do is we have 4 basic managers. We have about 17 salespeople, so each manager is going to adopt 4 salespeople. We're going to do this for 3 months in a row with the same persons. So Joe, you'll be paired with Susan for the next 3 months of this exercise, and then after the end of 3 months, we rotate managers and salespeople, and then you'll be doing this assessment one-on-one with a different manager. And you'll take on 3 or 4 new people. Does that make sense? Everybody understand?
I do.
All right, since we're about to get into the personal nitty-gritty of the sheet, I'm going to shut off the live because that's none of your business, and hopefully you enjoy this little recap of the one-on-one sheet. And if you like this, put some comments in there, and I will upload the document for everybody. All right, thanks. Bye.